Okay, welcome to Beau Hannam Guitars and Ukuleles. I'll show you how I route a truss rod channel, which may seem straightforward, but I thought I would do a video on it anyway. So this is a 12 fret to the body 00 guitar. Well, that isn't, that's the neck for it. But just to so you understand the length that I'm working with, even though the length doesn't actually matter, it would be the same for a 14 fret or any fret to the body and scale length. So what I did was I very roughly in depth, so rough in, I wasn't trying to get it perfectly deep. I put it on the bandsaw and just went up most of the way. That will just relieve, at least half of the work that the truss rod or the router has to do. I'm using a really nice truss rod from Luthier. I forget what they call these. It's Flex something or other. But this is a double action truss rod, meaning it can push the neck this way or this way. So I put double action truss rods in for one reason, and it's not because they're needed. I use double action truss rods because it's a good marketing element. I mean, about almost 20 years of making, I've only had to turn the truss rod so it pushed the neck down this way once, and that was because the ebony fretboard, it was really strong, and the table saw didn't cut the fret slots wide enough or something, so I just pushed it back. Happened to be my own guitar, but I've made 100 personal instruments, not personal instruments, but I've personally made 100 instruments, and at Chalet Guitars in Sydney I was a part of making maybe 200, 250 guitars. So I've made a lot, and in all that time I've only needed to use the forward bow of the truss rod once. So double action aren't needed, but I put them in anyway because you never know. And it's a good marketing thing, looks good on the website. Double action truss rod, wow. And they're no more expensive. So this requires a 1/4 inch slot, which I have prepared one earlier. So just going to hone in on the router isn't plugged in, by the way. This router table I made for something else, and the bit that I was using needed this sized hole. So normally I would have like a 1/2 inch hole here or something, but it's a little bit large, which is kind of annoying. Might actually do about half, and then do the second half later. In guitars, normally I also put in two carbon fiber strips, but this is a short scale, and this piece of mahogany is really, really strong, so it just doesn't need it. So I've got my center line here that I have already done on the table saw. So what I do now, get a straight edge, and in this case it's just a chunk of poplar. When I say straight edge, like this is a $60 straight edge, and this is like a $2 straight edge. It's straight enough. I prepared this surface on with my number 7 plane, so it is straight, as they say. Don't use cam clamps for this. You've got to use nice metal clamps. So what I'm doing here, which you can't see, I'm looking down, and again this router's off. So what I will do is just knock one side, loosen and knock one side of the table over until you get it on center. And this neck is wide enough so if it's not perfectly on center, it doesn't matter. And by perfectly on center, if it's off like a 30-second, it's not gonna affect my outcome. So I've just got to tighten up the, I don't know, what do you call it, the housing. Okay. Gonna wear these. And I'm just going to turn this on just to make sure it's tracking right. Okay, that's good. I was just looking, when you turn it on and then quickly turn it off, you can see if the router bit, you know, is sort of wobbling or oscillating, and just either you put the router bit in the wrong way, or there's a bit of dirt or something on one side, or it's a cheap router and it sort of flops around a bit. Well, not flops around, it kind of, instead of spinning nice like this, it sort of does this while spinning. So, and I tend to use cheap routers, so this is my other, or another router table that I've got. It's for doing binding ledges and stuff, and that's just two $25 Harbor Freight routers. But I tested them before I used them for the first time, and they were running true, or accurately, and that's fine. I've got another one which had a bit of wobble on it, and so I used that for the top and back trimming, because that's not a precision job. So, okay, the other thing I need to talk about is where to stop. So when I'm putting a carbon fiber rod in, or two, I will use a 1/8 bit and run it all the way through so these project out, and it just further stabilizes this weaker area, because headstocks are always falling off, and one on either side of the truss rod. This is my how I do ukes. The body is there, and all ukes get a carbon fiber rod, and I do that on the also on the router table. But I carry this all the way through under the nut, and then it's covered up by the head plate here. And that, actually I can show you the end result after I put the fingerboard on. So that's how it looks. I just have to sand this down, it's a tiny bit high. And then just put the, this doesn't need or have that, so what is going to happen is this will be the neck will be, or fingerboard will be here, and then there's going to be a tenon here. So this is going to, the wood here is going to be gone, but the tenon here is going to be left. So you want this back block, for those of you who don't know, this nut goes on the bottom, so that's on the bottom, now it's on the top, put it on the bottom. This nut has to be in wood, so this is going to be somewhere around here, but the other consideration is where to have it here, and I'm going to have it stop just before the nut. So is that, sorry, I wasn't on. So I'm going to stop this end just before the nut. This is an allied truss rod designed for a 12 fret to the body neck. This is a LMI truss rod, which is a little bit shorter. So this is the allied is 13 inches to this part, and then you've got about 3/4 of an inch here. This is 12 something or other, can't remember. But that could work. The place where you want this end to be is anywhere between the nut and the first fret. So that's roughly, well, I can show you exactly. This is the fingerboard for this guitar. This is the nut, and that's the first fret. So this end can go anywhere from, this area. It's kind of around there. But if I put that where I really want it to, this is a bit too far back. So this one's going to work perfectly for me. This one would work even better if this was a long scale 12 fret to the body, like is a classical guitar. That would put that probably about there. But it doesn't matter, this is going to be totally fine where it is. So the reason why I went into all that was because what I'm going to do is mark on here where the router bit is, and I'll mark it so I am marking this edge of the router bit, and I'm going to use this pen to help me. And then I'm going to mark where I need it to stop on the neck. So what this means is, and these two lines won't line up on the camera, but bear with me. So when I turn the router on and this is being pushed in, I'm going to stop when this red mark and this mark, why don't I just make it red, meet. And that will tell me that the router bit has stopped right where I want it to. And for the first pass, which is half the depth, I'm actually going to stop it, just a little bit before, like 1/8 of an inch before. And then for the last pass, full depth pass, I'll just push it in a little bit. The other thing is that this side is flat. So it rides along this flat surface nicely. What else do I need to say? I think that's it. The router bit is going to be twirling this way. Twirling? It's not really twirling. Rotating this way. So the neck will kind of stay towards the guard by itself. Another thing for router safety is when you're routing this, don't do this. Like, don't put your hand here, because I've seen this once, and who it happened to was kind of interesting. Someone hadn't tightened up the router bit enough, and the router bit rose up as they were doing the job. And the guy it happened to was a lung, I think it was one of the organs, lung transplant surgeon in Sydney. So lucky his hands didn't get annihilated. So let's get a routing. I'll turn down the sound. So just so you know, the depth that I'm cutting is to about there, so it's kind of 3/4-y. Wait till it's just leave that in the job until the router stops moving, rotating, swirling. I did forget a little trick that I usually do, which is to use one of these, which really helps in turning it on and off. But I will be using that for the next part. So I highly recommend getting one of these, especially for a job like this. So this is the router. And then from this box, you plug it into the wall. And be careful when you do this, like don't have this sitting here, because I don't know if that foot switch is in the on or off position. Okay, now the router's on, this is in the off position. When I step on it, So much easier to control. So here's the routed first route. You can see it's kind of a weird step. And I stopped it nicely. And that fits absolutely perfectly. So nice. There's like no wobble. It's cool. So I just have to get this fitted. Because this is a bit too long, what I'm going to do is use this and just mark the height. Okay, that is invisible. One sec. Okay, so now I've got that line on here. If that hole was smaller, I wouldn't have had to have done that, but. So you just raise this up. Another thing that's handy is to do this do like a couple of necks at once, because you know doing all this is a bit tiresome if you know have to set this up and break it down every couple of days. So that's set. I'm going to put back on the hearing aids. And I'm just going to do a quick test cut on the end. So I just did the first 1/4 inch or something just to test the depth, and that is spot on. It's like half a 64th under or something, and then with final sanding of this and you know the tiniest glue film, that will be filled in. So on we go. And this time I'm going to take the red line to the red line. So when you turn it off, so I went up to the red line and then I turned it off and then I just pulled it back a little bit so the router wasn't going to be turning off while butting up against that end grain. So looks like I might have to go a touch further, although I can. Yeah, so I'm going to go much further. So I've got two things I've got to consider. I have to square that end off, and I've got that much to go. So just a tiny bit. Perfect. Just squaring up this end with a 1/4 inch chisel. Let's make sure the bottom and sides are clean. So, ta-da and ta-da. I'll have to trim this tenon back a little bit too. But yeah, that's it. So this is like, there's no point in buying or spending a lot of money on a router table, because you get excellent results with this. By the way, turn that foot pedal off or unplug it, because I mean that foot pedal's right down there and I could easily step on it and scare the hell out of me, especially if I've got my hand here or something. But this table is all you need. And this is really easy to really fine tune. You just tap one end either way and you can really fine tune the center line. Yeah, and this was essentially kind of free. So that's it. That's routing a truss rod channel. The same procedure for any scale length, just anything. You just want this end right on the end, and always supported by wood. And you want this end to be somewhere between the nut and the first fret. Sort of, if I had my way, I would have it about, 1/4 inch back from the nut. So there you go. Cheers.